She wore her wedding ring on a chain inside her blouse every day. To school, in front of the parents who trusted her with their children, the colleagues who brought her coffee on Tuesdays, the boy who left 4 horse drawings on her desk before class started. None of them knew. None of them were supposed to. Ariana Reeves was Westfield Academy's most requested teacher. Calm, meticulous, impossibly kind in the particular way that makes parents stay after pickup to tell you their child asked to come to school on Fridays. She arrived at 7:45 and left at 4. She straightened the chairs every morning before the first child walked in. She remembered every student's name on the first day. She was also the secret wife of Seok-jin Han. They called him the Ash in circles where his name was said carefully. He was a Korean man with a serpentine dragon tattoo coiled on the side of his neck, black ink, one red detail at the eye, and the precise, unhurried movements of someone who has never once needed to hurry. He arrived at Westfield Academy every weekday at 3:58 in a black car. He kissed her at the gate. He drove her home. For 14 months, no one knew. Then, a woman with a phone stood at the wrong place at the wrong time and thought she was sending good news. And Park Yeon-ja, Seok-jin's mother, the woman who had decided things for 40 years, the woman who had never once had to account for herself publicly, began watching, began calculating, began moving toward a Friday afternoon that she believed belonged to her. What she didn't know was what her son had already decided. What she couldn't have predicted was who was going to tell her, and where, and in front of whom. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. The school hallway empties in stages. By 3:47, the last child is gone from room 7, and Ariana Reeves allows herself one breath, slow, deliberate, the kind you only take when no one is watching. She straightens the chairs without looking at them. Her hands know the rows. After 2 years at Westfield Academy, every desk is a memory. The boy who draws horses in the margin of every worksheet and hands them in without apology. The twins who sit too close to the window and argue in whispers. Noah's crooked nameplate that she's straightened 100 times and stopped straightening because he always puts it back crooked within a day. She knows them all. That knowing is the only part of her life she doesn't have to keep secret. She reaches for her blazer from the hook behind her desk. Cream linen, tailored to the shoulder, bought on a Saturday morning in a shop on 5th Avenue while Seok-jin waited outside, reading something on his phone, with his collar turned up against the February cold. She'd tried on 3. He never told her which one to choose. He never had to. 3:52. 8 minutes. She picks up her phone. No messages. That's normal. He doesn't text when he's already on his way. The afternoon light in room 7 comes through at an angle that turns everything gold for about 11 minutes before dropping behind the building across the street. Ariana has counted it. She's counted a lot of things over 14 months. The minutes between his arrival and her departure. The number of times a parent has stopped her in the corridor to say their child loves her class. The number of times someone has asked if she's seeing anyone, and she's smiled and said not really and kept walking. The counting is an obsession. It's the specific discipline of a woman who has agreed to be invisible in the place that matters most, and has learned to measure what she's allowed instead. She closes the cabinet above her desk and picks up her bag. One strap, clean leather, the color of cognac. She checks herself briefly in the small mirror on the shelf. Not vanity, habit. Her hair falls straight and clean past her shoulder blades, black and glossy, the kind of hair that behaves because she takes care of it. The cream blazer over the sage blouse, the small gold hoops at her ears, the delicate gold bracelet at her wrist. the gold chain at her throat, hidden below the silk. She doesn't touch it in public, but she always knows it's there. Simple. Correct, Ms. Reeves. She walks out of room 7 at exactly 3:58. The main entrance of Westfield Academy opens onto a wide sidewalk that feeds into the drop-off lane. Ariana takes the side stairs rather than the main corridor. Fewer people, less conversation, less of the specific weight of being seen by people who ask questions. She's learned the school's geography the way you learn a foreign city. Which routes are fast, which ones invite delay, which hallways belong to which version of yourself. Outside, the drop-off lane is mostly clear. 3 or 4 parents cluster near the gate, talking about something she doesn't follow. A nanny with a double stroller angles through the opening. The security guard at the post nods at her. She nods back. She steps to the edge of the sidewalk and waits. She doesn't check her phone. She doesn't have to. The black car comes from the left. Not fast, not slow. The precise pace of someone who knows exactly where he's going and has never once needed to rush. It slides to the curb with the quiet certainty of everything Seok-jin-han does, and Ariana feels it before she sees it. There's a specific gravity to his presence. Even at a distance, even through tinted glass, he gets out. He's in the gray suit, charcoal, fine grain. The one she notices catches the light differently depending on which way he turns. His collar is open, no tie. The dragon tattoo at the left side of his neck is visible above the collar. A serpentine coil in black ink, fine and deliberate, with a single red detail at the eye that catches the late afternoon light. People who don't know him spend too long looking at it when they think he isn't watching. He doesn't look at anyone else in the street. He looks at her. Ariana takes 2 steps forward. He takes 1. The kiss is quiet and brief and entirely hers. His hand comes up to the back of her neck. Once firm, the way a man touches something he has already decided belongs to him. And then drops. She can smell him. Cedar, cold air from the drive. The trace of something she's never been able to name, even after 14 months. Around them, the usual sounds of the school gate. A car engine idling, a bag zipper, a child calling out somewhere down the block. What she doesn't hear, because she isn't listening for it, is the stillness 15 feet behind her. Oh, Sumin has been standing near the gate for 4 minutes, waiting for her daughter Futer's child, who is running late from an after-school activity. She's a small woman with silver-threaded hair and a dark olive coat she wears from October to March every year without variation. She's been Park Yeonja's closest friend for 31 years. Since their children were in middle school. Since their husbands played cards on Thursday evenings. Since the specific arithmetic of shared history made them the kind of friends who don't need to explain things to each other because they already know. She knows Seok-jin-han the way all of Yeonja's circle knows him. The son who runs things, the son who sends the correct gifts at Chuseok. The son whose name is said with a particular weight that means, don't ask too many questions. She's seen him maybe 20 times in the last decade. She would recognize him in any crowd. She watches him kiss the black woman with the straight hair and the cream blazer at the school gate. She watches it for the full 4 seconds that it lasts. Then her hand goes to her phone. The photo is taken from behind and slightly to the right. In it, Seok-jin's profile is unmistakable. The line of his jaw, the set of his shoulders, the tattoo catching the late afternoon sun. The woman is shown mostly from behind, but her face is turned just enough. Dark eyes, full lips, the clean fall of straight black hair past her shoulder. She's beautiful. Even from that angle, even in a candid photo taken with a stranger's phone, she's beautiful. Sumin stares at it for a moment. She types the message in one pass, without pausing to consider it. She is not a woman who pauses to consider, because she has never believed the things she sends will cause damage. Look at this. Your son has a girlfriend. She's at the school here with me. So beautiful. He came to pick her up. She hits send before the grandchild appears at the gate. Inside the black car, Ariana's hand rests on the armrest between them. Seokjin drives with one hand on the wheel. They don't need to talk in the first few minutes. They never have. It's one of the things she fell in love with before she understood what she was falling into. This man whose silence isn't absence, whose stillness isn't distance. How was it? He asks at the first red light. The boy who draws horses gave me 4 new ones today. He put them on my desk before class started. Did you hang them? All 4, above the board. The corner of his mouth does something that isn't quite a smile. He looks back at the road. She turns to the window and watches the city move past in its usual layering. The buildings, the storefronts, the specific amber quality of the late afternoon light this time of year. She lets herself be carried. This is the only time in her day when she doesn't have to perform anything. Not Miss Reeves, not the woman who keeps secrets, not the wife who agreed to wait, just herself in a car going home. In her classroom, the afternoon light has just dropped behind the building across the street. The gold is gone, and in Sumin's phone, the message shows a small check mark. Delivered. Park Yeonja sees it at 4:23, while her housekeeper is setting the table for dinner. She reads it twice. She opens the photo and enlarges it with 2 fingers, slowly, until his neck fills the screen. The tattoo she's known since he was 22, the thing she asked him to remove once and never asked again. She sets the phone face down on the tablecloth. She doesn't eat much that evening. She doesn't answer Sumin. Not that night. Not the next day. Seokjin had proposed in March, 13 months before the school gate. At the kitchen table of the apartment he kept separate from everything. The one his mother had never been invited to visit, the one that existed because some parts of his life had to be held away from the empire, or they would be consumed by it. Ariana had been sitting across from him with a bowl of something she'd cooked on a Sunday afternoon, and he placed the ring on the table between them. Not with ceremony, not with a speech, just the object and the fact of it. A platinum band with a single stone, simple, correct. Hers. She looked at it for a long time. Your mother, she said. I know, she won't. I know, he said again, not defensive, not apologetic, just certain. In the way he was certain about everything he had already decided. She understood then that he was not asking her to be patient while he negotiated with his mother. He was asking her to build something true in the space that existed despite his mother. The space he had carved out deliberately over years of that woman's assumptions. He was asking her to choose realness over recognition. She said yes. The ceremony was in May. 2 witnesses. His attorney, who handled everything that needed to not exist on paper, and Ariana's closest friend from graduate school, a woman named Lydia, who cried through the entire 20-minute proceeding and apologized twice. No photographs, no announcements. The marriage certificate went into a locked drawer in the attorney's office. Ariana kept her name at school. She kept the appearance of her own apartment. She spent most nights in his, but the address she listed on school documents remained the one on West 88th Street. She kept the distance between their lives because Seokjin had asked her to. Not, she always reminded herself, out of shame, out of the precise calculation of a man who knew his mother's capabilities and had decided that the correct move was to control the timing. She'd agreed. She'd chosen love over visibility. She'd believed, she still believed, 14 months in, that the calculation was sound. But there are mornings when the chain at her throat is heavier than it should be. Yeonja began watching her son 11 days after Sumin's message. She didn't tell him. She didn't confront him. She's not the kind of woman who asks questions she hasn't already answered. She'd spent 4 decades watching men in her family move through the world with the certainty that they could be forgiven anything. And she'd learned that the only power available to her was in what she saw before anyone knew she was looking. She used Sumin. Not consciously, she would not have named it that way, but practically the way she used everything. She asked Sumin, casually, over tea on a Wednesday, what days her grandchild had activities at the school. She mentioned she'd been thinking about donating some books. She asked about the pickup times, the gate layout, the teachers who came outside. Sumin answered all of it, because she always answered everything. Because she was that kind of woman, and because she didn't know she was being used. She also had her driver. 11 days of this information gave Yeonja what she needed. Seok-jin left his office at 3:45 every weekday. He drove to a neighborhood on the Upper East Side. He stopped at Westfield Academy. He was there for approximately 20 minutes. He left going west, toward an address she'd never been given. On the 12th day, she didn't send the driver. She took the car herself, the school gate at 3:30 on a Friday. Yeonja parks across the street in the shade of a building overhang and waits. She watches the parents arrive in their particular afternoon formation. The ones who come early with coffee cups, the ones who sprint from the subway with their coats not fully buttoned, the nannies with their practiced efficiency. She watches the gate open. She watches children come through in clusters, breaking toward their families in the specific way children break, all at once like something released. At 3:59, the door at the side of the building opens and the woman steps out. Yeonja recognizes her from photo immediately. The straight black hair, the cream blazer, the particular way she moves through the gate, without hurry, without hesitation, as if she owns the 8 feet of sidewalk she's standing on. She's taller than the photo suggested, more composed. She pauses on the sidewalk the way someone pauses when they're accustomed to waiting for something they trust is coming. Yeonja opens the car door. She crosses the street. The black car is not yet in the lane. Around them, the afternoon crowd is clustering near the gate. Yeonja moves through them without looking at anyone. She stops in front of the woman and looks at her directly, with the expression she uses when she has already decided something and is simply informing the world. "You are the teacher," she says, not a question. Ariana looks at her. Something shifts in her expression. Not fear, not anger, but a specific recognition. The recognition of a particular kind of danger. "I am," she says. "My son is Seok-jin Han." Ariana doesn't answer. "You will stay away from him." Yeonja's voice hasn't risen yet. "That comes later. You have no place in his life. You are not what he needs. You are not his kind. You will not see him again." A parent nearby turns to look. Then another. Ariana says, quietly, evenly, "I think you should get back in your car." That is when Yeonja's voice stops being quiet. What she says in Korean first and then in English, so that the audience has no excuse for not understanding her. She calls Ariana shameless. She says a woman like her doesn't belong at a school like this, doesn't belong near a man like her son. She says her son has a family, a culture, obligations that run back further than this woman can comprehend. She uses the word degrade. She says it standing at the school gate of Westfield Academy on a Friday afternoon in front of 43 parents, 2 teachers, a security guard, and 11 children who are still close enough to hear. Ariana stands with her hands at her sides. Her jaw is set. Her eyes don't leave Yeonja's face. Around them, the crowd has gone quiet with the particular quiet of people witnessing something they don't yet know how to respond to. A few children have stopped walking. A woman near the stroller rack puts her hand on her child's shoulder, without quite knowing why. Catherine Hargrove arrives at the gate at 4:03 and stops 2 steps inside when she hears the word degrade. She looks at Ariana standing still in her cream blazer, with her hands at her sides. She looks at the woman screaming at her. And then Catherine Hargrove, who edits books for a living and has never once in her professional life said anything she didn't mean. takes a step forward. That's enough, she says. Yanja turns. She is this school's most requested teacher, Catherine says. Whatever you think you're doing, you don't know what you're talking about. This is not your business, Yanja says. You're screaming at someone in front of children, Catherine says. You made it everyone's business. More people are watching now. The loose shape of a crowd around something unresolved. A teacher has come to the gate entrance and stopped there, watching. The security guard has taken 2 steps forward but not intervened. There is no physical threat, only language, only the sustained public performance of contempt. Yanja has not stopped. She turns back to Ariana and lowers her voice slightly. The specific modulation of someone who is about to say the most precise version of the cruelest thing, and says, "My son will not degrade himself for you." Ariana feels it land. Of course she does. It lands in the precise center of the thing she carries everywhere. The fear that love, however real and however chosen, is not always proof against the world's capacity to unmake you. Her hands are still at her sides. Her jaw is still set. She does not speak. Because at the edge of the crowd, behind Yanja's shoulder, a figure is moving through the parents. Not fast, not slow. The same pace it always is. He'd been in the parking lot for 6 minutes, engine off, watching the gate the way he always watched it. He saw his mother get out of the car across the street before she reached the curb. He recognized her at 70 yards. The olive coat, the rigid posture, the particular deliberateness of a woman who believes she's executing a plan. He understood what was happening in the next 4 seconds. He sat for 23 seconds, long enough to be certain, long enough to allow himself the full weight of what he was about to do and to choose it completely. Then he opened the car door. He walked through the crowd without touching anyone. They moved. They always did. There's something about the way Seokjin-han occupies space that doesn't ask. It simply arrives, and the space reorganizes itself around it. Yanja heard the movement before she saw him. She turned, and then she saw her son's face. She had raised him. She had known this face through every age. The softness of it, when he was a child who still climbed into her bed during thunderstorms. The sharpening of it when he entered his father's world and had to become something that couldn't be soft anymore. The controlled neutrality he'd learned to wear in rooms full of men who were measuring him every second. She knew every version of his face. She had never seen it look like this. He stopped beside Ariana, not in front of her, not behind her. Beside her, their shoulders 6 inches apart. The distance that said everything without saying a word. He looked at his mother. Yanja opened her mouth. "Don't," he said. She closed it. He turned to face the crowd. Not theatrically, not with the posture of a man performing. The way a man turns when he understands that there is only one direction left to face and he has finally, completely decided to face it. "She is not my girlfriend." His voice was level, not loud. Not soft. The specific register of someone who has made a decision and is simply stating it as fact. "She is my wife. We have been married for 14 months. The silence lasted exactly 1 beat. Then Catherine Hargrove said, "Oh my God." Then a father in a green coat said something, and then a woman near the stroller rack said something else. And then the crowd was no longer quiet. Not with hostility, but with the specific eruption that happens when people have been watching something unjust and have finally been given permission to say so. "She's the best teacher in this building," said a man Ariana recognized as Marcus Chen's father. "The boy who draws horses." He said it toward no one in particular, which made it land on everyone. A woman with a stroller said something in a lower voice to the woman next to her, and both of them looked at Yanja, the way people look at something they have quietly revised their opinion of. Catherine Hargrove took 1 step forward. "My daughter has been in Miss Reeves's class for 2 years. She asks to come to school on Fridays." She never asked before. She said it directly to Yonja, clearly, without heat. This woman you just screamed at in front of children. That's who she is. Diane Okafor had come to the gate entrance from the corridor inside. She stood at the threshold in her navy-wrap dress and her camel coat with the bangles on her wrist. And she said to no one in particular, and all of them at once, "Every person in this building respects her. Every person." The boy in the navy coat, Marcus Chen, 8 years old, who draws horses in the margin of every worksheet, looked at Ariana across the crowd and said, loudly to his father, "Is Ms. Reeves okay?" His father looked at Yanja and said, "She's going to be fine." Yanja stood in the center of it. She was not accustomed to this. She had not been publicly corrected in. She couldn't remember when. She had not had to stand on a sidewalk while strangers told her she was wrong. She had built her entire existence on the architecture of being the one who decided things. For her son, for her household, for the shape of what she would and would not accept. Money had insulated her. Her son's loyalty had insulated her. The particular confidence of a woman who has never once had to account for herself publicly had insulated her. None of those insulations were working. She looked at the crowd, the parents and the teachers and the children and the security guard who had stepped forward and stopped, and the woman in the cream blazer who was still standing there with her hands at her sides and her jaw set, and her expression neither triumphant nor broken. Just present, just steady, just unmistakably herself. She looked at her son. He was looking at her with the expression she'd been trying to name since she turned and saw him. She could name it now. It was not anger. It was something quieter and heavier. The specific look of someone who has made a decision he cannot undo, and has chosen to be at peace with that. The look of a man who has already left. He had taken Ariana's hand at some point during the crowd's eruption. Ariana had not pulled away. "Mom," he said. Only that word in Korean. Yeonja's jaw worked. She looked at the crowd, at her son, at the woman beside him, whose expression gave her nothing to push against. "You'll regret this," she said, the only weapon she had left. Seokjin looked at her for a moment. 1 beat. 2. "Get in your car," he said quietly. "Go home," she went. The crowd dispersed the way crowds do after something that felt important. In pieces, with a low residue of conversation that would continue through dinner in 100 separate kitchens, a dozen group chats, the specific whisper network of a school where everyone's children share the same hallways. Ariana let herself be walked to the car. She sat in the passenger seat and looked out the window for a long time as the city rearranged itself around them. "You didn't have to do that," she said finally. "I know. She's your mother. She was my mother when she was doing that to you, too." Ariana was quiet. The city moved past in its Friday layers, the headlights starting to appear, the restaurants filling at their windows, the particular amber and blue hour before the sky fully gives up the day. "Are you okay?" he asked. The first red light. She thought about it honestly, not the way people answer when they want to seem fine. "Not yet," she said, "but I will be." He didn't say anything else. He knew she meant it. The following Thursday, Seokjin called the leasing office for his mother's apartment on the Upper West Side and ended the arrangement. The apartment was in his name, had always been. That same afternoon, he called the bank that managed the secondary account and had the card deactivated. Administrative, straightforward, no drama in the paperwork. He did not warn her. She called on a Saturday morning, 9 days after the school gate. He answered on the second ring. "The card was declined," she said. "I know." The office called about the apartment. "I know. Seokjin." Her voice had a quality he recognized from other contexts, from men who called him when their arrangements had been terminated without warning. The quality of someone who has been powerful their whole life and is encountering for the first time the specific physics of power removed. You cannot do this to your own mother. I didn't do anything, he said. You did something, in public, to my wife. In front of her students. She is not. She is, he said. She has been. For 14 months. Silence. Longer than he expected. I'm not asking you to love her, he continued. No sentiment in it, no heat. Just the clarity of a man who has thought about this particular conversation for considerably longer than 9 days. I'm not asking you to be happy about who I chose. I'm asking you to understand what you are and to live as that person. After everything I did for you, she said, the oldest line, the most worn. I paid for everything you did, he said. For 11 years, I paid for the apartment, the account, the car, the vacations, the gifts. That was my choice. This is also my choice. She was quiet again. You'd punish your own mother for this. You stood in the street, he said, and called my wife shameless in front of children who call her Ms. Reeves, in front of the people whose respect she earned by doing her job better than anyone else in that building. A pause. I didn't set the terms. You did. One more silence. Then, she will never belong with you. Seokjin looked at the apartment around him. The kitchen where Ariana had cooked on a Sunday, and then stood at the window with her coffee watching the street below. The hallway where her coat hung on the third hook beside his. The table where a platinum ring had sat between two people on a March afternoon and changed the shape of everything. She already does, he said. He hung up. The quiet that followed was the kind that follows something finally said. Not empty quiet, but full quiet. The quiet of a thing that has been true for a long time and is now also spoken. On Monday morning, room 7 filled at 8:15 the way it always does. The boy with the horses arrived first, placed 4 new drawings on the desk before she asked, and took his seat. Ariana thanked him the way she always did, directly, without making a performance of it. She put the horses on the shelf above the board, where the children could see them. She straightened the chairs. She began. That was enough. That had always been enough, and now, finally, everyone knew it. She wore her wedding ring on a chain inside her blouse. Every day, against her skin, hidden, not out of shame, out of the precise calculation of a woman who understood that some things, if seen too early by the wrong person, will be destroyed before they have the chance to become permanent. So she carried it. Every morning, through the school gate, past the parents who trusted her and the colleagues who brought her coffee on Tuesdays, and the boy who left 4 horse drawings on her desk before class started. She carried it quietly, against her chest, in the place where only she could feel its weight. Some mornings the chain was heavier than it should have been. Maybe you know that weight. Not a ring, but something. Something precious that you carried hidden, your worth, your beauty, your glow, because the world around you had already decided it didn't belong, because an industry that was supposed to see you had spent decades standing at your gate and saying exactly what Park Yeonja said at that school. You don't belong here. You are not what we chose. And like Ariana, you stood still. Hands at your sides, jaw set. You didn't flinch. You didn't leave. You simply waited for the world to catch up with what you already knew about yourself. That was enough. That had always been enough. But you deserve more than enough. You deserve a system built specifically for you. Korean glass skin secrets for Black queens 45+ is that system. The complete K-beauty guide built for the woman who has been carrying her worth hidden for too long. For melanin-rich, mature skin that the beauty industry spent decades refusing to see. AM and PM routines built around your biology, not borrowed from someone else's. The 15 Korean star ingredients that actually work for your skin. Glass hair rituals for type 4 hair. A Jjimjilbang home spa experience. 12 botanical teas that glow you from the inside out. On Monday morning, Ariana walked into room 7. She straightened the chairs. She breathed. She began. That was enough. That had always been enough. And now, finally, everyone knew it. Now everyone knows it about you too. Scan the QR code on your screen, or find the link in the description, or check the pinned comment. You have always belonged here. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever carried a love so completely and kept it hidden not out of shame, but to protect it from someone who would have destroyed it? Have you ever stood completely still while someone screamed at you in public, knowing that your silence was the most powerful thing you could offer? Have you ever had someone choose you, openly, irreversibly, at a cost they couldn't take back, and understood for the first time that you had never been invisible to the person who mattered? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, silent courage, and love that refuses to stay hidden, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.